You're watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored, and thanks for joining us for our second half hour tonight. Investigators are still searching for a motive in the deadly shooting at an outlet mall in Allen, Texas this weekend. 8 people killed there. While investigators look for answers, dark new information about the alleged gunman, 33-year-old Mauricio Garcia, show his full hateful views, according to investigators. Authorities have found a diary of his where Garcia wrote about being devoted to the Aryan race and hating Hispanic women despite being Hispanic himself. Posts also show him with large Nazi tattoos. My next guests say this case highlights how some of Mexican descent have become radicalized and hateful towards their own race and people of their own color in general. They are the rise of the white nationalist Hispanics.
So I brought you guys here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this. And Tony, you and I have talked. This is nothing new.
No, exactly. And I will point this out. So I have a book called The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. And to kind of set a context, let's get a few things straight that our communities already know. White is the default setting for culture in America. And every day we sign user agreements to that effect. Now, we're in a state, too, where we don't want, well, legislators don't want us to talk about critical race theory, race, or history. So this is all swept under the rug until this erupts. And I should point out that if we talk about colonization, the Spanish conquistadors were basically white Europeans who came to these new lands and felt they were supreme enough to subjugate an entire people. And I don't want to get too far into a history course. I'll close with this part for now. They basically imposed a caste system. And that caste system was to define how they were better than everyone else, and that was based on color. So the whiter you were, the higher you were in that hierarchy. And people at the lower spectrums, they fought to stay up. Why? Because that meant that would limit who they could marry, what they could own, or if they were owned. And America knows something about that too.
And Monica, how does this have a long-lasting impact on individuals like Mauricio Garcia, who's accused of this mass shooting, where he has been tied to what they consider the right-wing death squad or white supremacists? How does that affect a young Hispanic male? How does he get involved with that, what we know from history?
Well, like Tony was mentioning, part of that was the doctrine of discovery and manifest destiny, which they pretty much said because we are the rightful people, we deserve this land, we deserve to take over and colonize this whole land as well as the people. And part of that, as we can see with this person, I think that they in themselves have internalized that and has been put in a position where now they feel like they can take over and everyone else is below them.
And sister, let's bring you into this conversation too. Is there some self-hatred there as well?
I mean, not only is there self-hatred, but there's also a want to assimilate and a want to belong somewhere. So we see it in cases like this person or other people that because they are so oppressed, they rather leave whatever themselves or their culture that they want and try to join these other groups. And it's important to point out that anybody can be a white supremacist. I've been hearing a lot of online chatter, and they're saying, well, he was Hispanic, there's no way he can be a white supremacist, but you can be a white supremacist in ideology. And we have people like Senator Ted Cruz, we have people like Chingo Bling, who are so, they are so self-hatred on themselves that they want to occupy a space or want to beg for a space in other spaces.
And of course, Tony, you and I talked about the head of the Proud Boys, who is a Hispanic as well.
And I think we're touching on something here where, for example, there's not an official definition of what it means to be Latino. So if you look at the census, it's just kind of stretch the term out. And I'm not advocating that there should be one, but there's also not a definition for white. And what happens then is if you control power and you've got certain privileges that's been handed down to you because maybe you own slaves, maybe you own land forever, you happen to be a certain pigment, you don't have to argue who you are. By default, you run everything. On the other hand, we who are disenfranchised, we have to fight to define ourselves and to work our space out. I bring all that up because here's the irony of people like these supremacists who are in the Proud Boys. And again, my heart goes out to all the people who suffered because of the rage of these men. They felt disenfranchised. They felt powerless. They didn't want to take the blame for that. They felt they were entitled to it because they thought they were superior to others, and they looked at who they could blame. And here's the irony, Isaiah. People who are powerless and feel like that, they can't get to the people in power. All they can do is hurt everyone else like them in the same situation, and it goes back to the self-hate. They're really hurting people that looks just like him. That's why people are confused.
We'll continue this conversation here on The Factor tomorrow night with part 2 of our discussion, the rise of white nationalist Hispanics.